We've got a great panel here, all stars in the worlds of sports reporting. Talk about this and a whole lot more. It's a special sports edition of The Issue Is. Ben Lyons is back. He's worked for E! Extra, Access Hollywood, ESPN Radio, Rock the Vote. Apparently he can't keep a job. He hosts the Lions Den podcast. He's working on a new show on Scratch. This is pretty cool. It's in partnership with the PGA Tour called Gimmies for Loot. It profiles the charities behind celebrity golf tournaments. Ramona Shelburne is here for the first time. She's a senior writer at ESPN.com. She's the host of a fabulous podcast series from ESPN's 30 for 30. It's called The Sterling Affairs. It chronicles Donald Sterling's strange ownership of the LA Clippers, and I could not recommend it more. It's really, really great. Arash Markazi is with us for the first time. He's a former writer with ESPN and Sports Illustrated, now a sports columnist with the LA Times. You can check out his column on page 2 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday in the Times. Welcome to you all. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
I feel like we're missing John Ireland and Steve Mason. So let's talk about this NCAA thing. Big deal in terms of California leading the way. Is this a good idea, first off?
Well, it's a step in the process, and it's a big step, right? Anything that's going to take away some of the power that the NCAA has over these student athletes who are out there earning money for these universities, I think is a good thing. I think there's more work to be done. It's great to see California, as always, at the forefront of the worker, and that's what the student athlete is for these universities. So I'm excited about it.
You were a former collegiate athlete yourself at Stanford. What do you think about this?
So I think it's a great step forward. I do think this is the beginning of the end for the NCAA as we know it. But I do worry about unintended consequences of a bill like this. I mean, should I be the one representing for the non-revenue Olympic sports, right? Softball, soccer, curling, whatever you want to say. Like those sports are funded in large part by the revenue that comes in from men's basketball and from football. That's not to say that they should be doing it that way, that it should be funded that way. The university can fund it as it is, but the system has been constructed that way. Now, I think when we look at what has gone wrong in the NCAA, the idea that people can be selling jerseys for Tim Tebow, or who was famously against something like this, but can be selling jerseys for players at UCLA, players at USC, and they are not the ones making the profit off of them. Right. I think that's why it was important for Ed O'Bannon, who you also saw in that video, who's been at the leader of this movement for a long time, to be leading that charge.
Back from UCLA in the 90s. And Arash, I think there's been some misreporting of this. People think that athletes are just going to be paid because they're playing in college. It's if you're likeness is used, you can get a share of that.
Exactly, and that's important. This is not a salary position. This is not the school paying the player. This is basically saying, if you're going to sell my jersey, if you're going to sell a poster, if you're going to have me sign something, you should get something from that. And I've seen this happen, whether you're a star quarterback or a star player. If the school is going to sell your number and not your name, wink, wink, we know who's number 5, we know who's number 12 or whatnot, the player should get some of that.
Yeah. So, Ramona, another interesting moment here. You cover the NBA and covered LeBron so much. LeBron James right there. This announcement happening on LeBron James' show.
Yeah.
What do you make of LeBron James, sort of the political kingmaker in all this?
I mean, this is what he lives for. This is what his legacy is he wants to take the platform that he has and to put it towards real good in the world and real change in the world. I mean, he flat out said on that episode, this is what we created this platform for. And so I think it's an incredibly validating thing for LeBron James, for Gavin Newsom to take that stage and take that opportunity to sign it there. But he's been in this space for a while now. I mean, you remember he campaigned for Hillary Clinton in the last election. He's been one of those athletes who has not been afraid to venture into politics. And Ohio famously did not go for Hillary Clinton. So LeBron James put himself out there, and his state did not vote with him. He's used to this.
And Ben, you've been active with Rock the Vote, working with NBA players, trying to get people involved politically. Sort of where do you see the role for athletes in our political discourse? It
speaks to their new role as the true influencers in our culture today. Previous generations saw musicians, rock stars come out and, We Are the World and do songs to try to capture the consciousness. But now LeBron really has his finger on the pulse of the zeitgeist. And by doing this act, by having this act happen on the shop, it is another reminder that the world is watching what LeBron, what KD, what Kyrie, what all these players are doing on and off the court. And the fact that they're now doing it for something as positive as this, hats off.
Because we remember, Arash, Michael Jordan famously didn't do stuff like this, avoided it. He was focused on selling shoes. Charles Barkley used to say, I'm not a role model.
Yeah.
LeBron James seems to be taking that responsibility pretty seriously.
And I respect that. You know, when the whole thing happened with the Clippers and Donald Sterling, it was LeBron who came out and said, this man cannot be a part of this league. And it was important for him to say that, because if he says that, the other players around the league feel comfortable saying the same thing. So for him to embrace this role and want to accept it and do something with it, I think it's fantastic.
Okay, so he also is still a basketball player, and we got quite a season coming. So I want predictions right now. Lakers, Clippers, Warriors. Who has a better season?
Well, you know me, I'm the Laker hater on this panel, so I'm going to jump right in. I think the Golden State Warriors are being completely overlooked and disrespected. A team that's been to the finals now 5 years in a row, has a great ownership group, a GM, a coach, arguably top 3 player in the league in Steph Curry. I think the Warriors somehow win the West and make it back to the NBA Finals in June. I'm going on a limb.
So I don't know if they win the West, because I think it takes them time to get people back, but I'm kind of on that same train. Like, don't sleep on the Warriors. I actually think the Clippers have the best roster, top to bottom, because they have so much depth. I do worry a little bit about their injury issues. Like, Kawhi Leonard's going to be load managed like he was last year in Toronto. Paul George is going to start the season on the DL, right? He had 2 shoulder surgeries, one on each side to start the year. That's not always a great way to get going. But if they do get themselves healthy, I like the Clippers roster top to bottom better. But I'm going to say this about the Lakers. They have the top 2 stars, and I don't know that the team they begin the year with is the team they'll end the year with, and so.
LeBron
let's
likes
give
to
them
get
that
people
room.
traded, is I think what you're suggesting.
I'm gonna go with
Arash.
the Lakers. I think we had like the Warriors, Clippers, Lakers. I think, to Ramona's point, 2 of the top 5 players in the league. They got some pieces that I think are going to have really good seasons, like Kyle Kuzma. Maybe Dwight Howard will finally do something really good in Los Angeles. I like the Lakers.
Yeah, but don't discount the Clippers' defense,
Exactly.
I think, which is really going to be something this season. Okay, up next, we're talking about power. This is Bernie Sanders' theme song. Our thoughts are with Bernie this week as he recovers from heart surgery. Power to the people. The power dynamics in pro sports themselves are changing. A lot more power for the players. Why is that? We're going to talk about that next. Jamming out to some John Lennon as he
Such a good job of always just mixing in the music.
Kawhi Leonard booed at the recent LA Rams game. Paul George was booed at the Dodgers game, even though they joined the LA Clippers, which, by the way, folks, are a team based in LA. So what's up with that? Let's talk about that and the changing power dynamics of pro sports. Welcome back to our panel. Ben Lyons, Arash Markazi, Ramona Shelburne. Arash, you wrote a column about this in the LA Times, this sort of battle for LA. These hometown guys, they return to Southern California, and yet they're still booed?
But it's a rivalry. I actually like that, because the Laker fans don't like the Clippers, and the Clippers obviously don't like the Lakers. They actually care. We were at a point years ago where if they showed a Clippers player, you wouldn't know who that player was, and you wouldn't care. The other interesting dynamic is these are players, Kawhi, Paul George, you go back to Chris Paul. The Lakers wanted them. They didn't come to the Lakers, they went to the Clippers. So again, it's a weird dynamic, but it's because the Clippers are now a very good team and they're a championship contending team.
Yeah. Although I don't think of them as rivals, because when have they ever been good at the same time?
Well,
I guess this is
for
the
the
first time
yeah.
ever that we could see that sort of that matchup, the heart of L.A.
Well,
Yeah.
I gotta be honest. I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen any dynamic like this right now.
Yeah, that's
This
true.
is weird. This is totally different, because it was like Laker fans used to like ignore Clipper fans, like the Clippers, and it wasn't so much that they disliked them. There just wasn't a rivalry, and so you would see like nobody was hating on Elton Brand.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing that to Corey Maggette when he would show up places.
Right.
And I don't even know if I think they knew who they were. I just don't think they were a threat to the Lakers.
Well, the Lakers have been the worst team in the NBA the last 6 years. So now there's this
Lakers-
Say that
subculture.
again?
The Lakers
Say that again?
have had the worst record in the NBA the last 6 years, which in Laker years is like a lifetime. The Knicks fan, that's like a week and a half. But now there's this subculture of an angry mob. Like the pitchforks are out and they're hating on other teams and fan bases, and it has become this weird thing in LA sporting events where if you're a Laker fan, you see a Clipper, you boo them.
There's also this thing going on, though, that the power dynamics of the game themselves are changing. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George were essentially able to do this on their own, force ownership into doing this. Anthony Davis was able to force a trade to create his own super team. This is different than even when you have this great podcast about Donald Sterling when he owned the Clippers. He seemed to have a lot more power than what we're seeing right now.
So one of the questions that always sticks with me, there was this part of the podcast where I talked to Blake Griffin, and he was at one of Donald Sterling's sort of famous white parties that he used to have. You probably went to one of those. Everyone wore white. Donald wore black. There was a lot of hostesses there. We'll call them hostesses. And nobody wanted to be there, right? Like the players just got dragged there, and like Blake Griffin was like the #1 draft pick, and he was the big star. And Donald's like, grabs him up on stage, and like, Blake's like standing there uncomfortably, and Donald's making a speech about him. And there was a video of it. So we took that video and showed the video to Blake, and I was like, how does it make you feel to watch that? He's like, oh, it's cringeworthy. And I go, well, who was going to tell Donald Sterling that that was cringeworthy? He's like, nobody. He was the owner. I was the boss. And I think we're just in such a different era now that you have to, like, people will tell you it's cringeworthy. People will tell you this is really bad.
Or they'll post it on social media so everybody can see it.
Exactly. And I just think that, like, back then, players did not have a voice, or at least the feeling that if they did use that voice, there wouldn't be punitive consequences for that. And Blake Griffin flat out said, he goes, I was a rookie, but it's not just that I was a rookie. Like, Chauncey Billups played there.
Yeah.
Grant Hill played there. None of those are some of the greatest players and leaders of the modern generation, and they couldn't speak truth.
But it's a cultural thing of thinking
that,
and just the time period of thinking that what happens behind closed doors stays behind closed doors. But now it doesn't. As Donald Sterling well knows, it ends up on an audio tape, it ends up on a podcast, so there's a sense of transparency in our culture nowadays that didn't exist even 5-10 years ago.
But to your point, players should have the power to choose where they want to go. I mean, they should have the ability to say, I don't want to play for this team, or I don't want to play for this guy. The Knicks are struggling right now because James Dolan. I mean, who wants to play for a guy like James Dolan? Now,
Ben Lyons.
Exactly.
If there is a young point guard out there who has a passion for the kazoo and wants to be in James Dolan's band, then maybe he'll recruit someone.
That is part of the problem. And it's cool as well, and you're documenting this, Ben, in your new show, that players are able to use that voice for charities, use their voice for so many other things, and use that to really change society.
So if we're asking them to have an opinion about our political scene, if we're asking them to have the wherewithal to have the responsibility to give back in their communities, we can't allow them to choose where they want to play basketball, which gave them all this power and influence in the first place. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. Well, we want to encourage everybody to check out our Issue Is podcast. In our archives, we've got an in-depth sit-down with Ben Lyons about his life, his loves, and why he still can't quit the Knicks.
In-depth sit-down.
All of our shows, including this one, in podcast form. Just search for The Issue Is wherever you stream. Up next, we're talking wrestling.
Yeah.
This is the new theme song for the WWE SmackDown right here on Fox. We're also going to get World Series Super Bowl picks from these sports geniuses. We'll be right back with more.
Pop that collar.
Yeah. There we go.
Pop that collar.
You're a big wrestling guy,
I'm
right?
wrestling too. A little bit.
Now back on Fox, Ramona Shelburne, Ben Lyons, Arash Markazi back on Fox as well. Arash, I know you love wrestling.
I sure do.
Why? What is it about wrestling?
It's the drama. I mean, what I hate is when people say, do you know it's fake? I'm like, do you know TV shows are fake? It's a drama.
Not this show.
Not this show.
This
but
is real
the
news.
Game of Thrones or Sopranos or whatever. It's scripted drama, and I love it. And the beautiful thing about it, you can go to it live.
Yeah.
And Ramona's gone, and I think maybe she's enjoyed it. I don't know. I know her husband's a much bigger fan than she is, but we love it. It's scripted drama.
When I first went, I got, I was a good wife. I got him tickets to go see Raw when it came to Staples Center. I didn't get it. I was like, I don't understand what you're chanting about. I don't know any of the soap opera. It's kind of like coming in to watch Young and the Restless for the first time after
Season
been,
5.
right? And you're like, what are these people upset about? But once you start to know what all the drama is about, what all the characters are about, you start to learn the chants. You start to learn who's called out who. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, you're part of that community, you know. And I grew up.
Plus Ric Flair. Oh my, right?
The icons that we grew up with still having a voice in the culture. And then also, I just love seeing stars that I remember from high school taking that next step in their careers, whether it's Stone Cold or Cena or, you know, who's in the fast.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson, the biggest movie star in the world.
Yeah, to see all these guys kind of take it a step further and transcend the sport as well is pretty cool.
Yeah, and good to have The Rock back in the WWE
Elex,
ring.
I'm going to tell you something.
What?
My uncle, his name is David Feldman. He lives in New York. He's a really smart guy, okay? He's written books. He's a scholar. He consults on television shows. He writes like doctoral type papers on wrestling because that is how high level the drama that goes into this stuff.
He's definitely not a jabroni.
Love wrestling. All right, so wrestling's on Fox. I'm being a good corporate citizen today. You know what else is on Fox? We got the World Series and we got the Super Bowl this year. So we now need to go to predictions. World Series, who's in it and who wins?
I'm just going to run it back from my predictions last year. Let's go Dodgers and Rams. Like, let's keep it LA. I think it's going to be a magical year in LA sports.
Okay.
I'm hoping it's the Dodgers and Yankees. I'm sort of thinking it's going to be the Dodgers and the Astros. We'll see, right?
I'm going to go Dodgers Yankees because that would set up a great game one of the World Series, which would fall on the same night as the Lakers Clippers to begin the NBA season, October 22nd. That would be fun.
And it's for Super Bowl for you guys.
Go with the Rams and the Chiefs and the Rams, even though they're not playing well. But why not? Los Angeles.
Yeah.
1 week, Arash. 1 week. Relax.
I like the Chiefs also this year. I think they're really. I'm going to go with the Saints this year. I think their defense is a lot improved, and Drew Brees comes back.
Well, here's one thing we know for sure about the Super Bowl. We're going to be seeing Jennifer Lopez there. And I think we're going to see Pitbull. I think he's going to do a cameo. So we're going to go out with J-Lo and Pitbull with a shout out to Shakira as well. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching The Issue Is. And go Dodgers.
Yeah, that's right. Let's go. Let's go Dodgers.
Throw my blue for the Dodgers.
There it is.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here.